Tonight, we journey into the high, breathless altitudes of the ancient Andes, where the wind is thin and slow, where the sky feels close enough to touch, and where, for thousands of years, people have whispered stories to the stars. You may not feel it yet, but you are already ascending, higher and higher, where snow-crowned mountains sleep like dreaming giants, and where something older than memory still coils softly between stone, cloud, and sky. The peoples who lived here before time had a name did not look upward to escape the world. They looked up because the sky was part of them, woven into their breath, stitched into the patterns of their clothes, and carved into the bones of mountains that reached for the heavens, like ancient prayers. And above it all, in the thin air, beyond words, there moved a shape, long, sinuous, feathered like light, serpentine like rivers. Neither beast nor bird, a god of winds, a whisperer of storms, a sky serpent. You may know it by many names: Amaru, in Quechua, or the feathered god of later empires, or, simply, as a creature seen only in dreams, a guardian between the world of stone and the world of stars. Tonight, let this be your path into sleep. Let your thoughts loosen like woven threads, unraveling slowly into mist. Let the stories rise, like morning fog over this sacred valley, until they become something softer, something slower, something timeless. You are not alone. Beside you walks the wind, over you circles the stars. And somewhere, high above, the sky serpent watches, coiled, in silence, waiting to be remembered. This story is not fast. It moves like wind through grass, like snow melting in sunlight, like a whispered prayer in a forgotten tongue. It is not here to excite you, but to guide you into the quiet, into the ancient, into rest. So let your eyes grow heavy. Let your body sink downward, even as your mind floats upward. And as we begin, feel yourself entering a world made not of time, but of rhythm. A world that listens more than it speaks. A world where every rock remembers, and every shadow holds a secret. Sky. Welcome, traveler. This is the story of the sky serpents. This is the story beyond the legends. This is the story the stars still remember. Before there was mountain, before there was cloud, there was breath, not breath as we know it, not the soft inhale and exhale of lungs, but a deeper breath, the sigh of existence itself, a slow, pulsing rhythm moving through nothingness like wind through hollow stone. It was not cold, for there was no temperature. It was not dark, for there were no eyes to perceive shadow. It was simply still. And in that stillness lay the seed of all things. In the high cradle of what would one day be the Andes, the bones of the earth stirred under this primordial breath, the way a dream stirs before waking, a gentle shifting, almost imperceptible, but from it, something ancient began to take form. The people of the highlands say that in the beginning, the world was wrapped in layers not of dirt or stone, but of spirit, above and below and within, and that from the deepest layer rose the first serpent, long and luminous, without scale or tongue, coiling through the fabric of being like a slow-moving river of light. They called it Amaru, not a beast, not a monster, but a bridge between the waters and the sky, between thought and matter, between spirit and soil. It was said that Amaru's body flowed through every layer of existence, and where it passed, space unfolded, the stars uncurled like flower petals, mountains stretched upward like long, slow exhalations. Rivers began to trace its curves, etching the path of its divine dance into the land itself. It is hard to know how long this phase lasted, for time had not yet been born, but eventually, the serpent stirred in a new way, not just to move, but to make, to shape. With breath came form, and from form came silence, and then sound. The first sound was not a voice, but the humming of wind over rock. It spiraled downward into the valleys, drawing forth echoes that became rhythm, and rhythm that became ritual. It was in this timeless moment that the people say the world cracked gently open, like a seed or an egg, and from it flowed the bones of the mountains. These were no mere stones, they were considered Apus, living spirits, mountain beings who carried the memory of the serpent within them. Each peak became a memory, each shadow became a dream. Each winding path, a trace of something divine. And though no people yet walked this world, the story had begun. From the coiling movement of Amaru, the fabric of the Andes was shaped, jagged, folded, and lifting ever upward, as if the earth itself was trying to speak to the sky. They say that when the serpent's breath passed over a place, it left behind echoes of warmth and wine, small spirits, seeds of life waiting in silence. And when it passed again, those seeds bloomed into form, grasses, flowers, furred things, feathered things, but none yet spoke. No eyes yet looked up. Still, the world was preparing, and in the sky above, where the stars were beginning to whisper, in cold silence, the body of the sky serpent glowed, faintly woven into constellations not yet named, dancing between galaxies that would one day guide the travels of those below. In this first dreaming of the world, there was no hierarchy, no gods and thrones, no people in villages, only the slow unfolding of spirit into form, like music taking on shape, or sleep taking on vision. Amaru's dance was not linear. It circled and spiraled and looped, doubling back upon itself, weaving the layers of the cosmos together like the patterns in a woven textile. And in each intersection, each crossing of sky and earth, of water and breath, a new form emerged. Birds with serpent tails, trees that hummed with invisible wings, mountains that listened. The Quechua elders say that all things in this world are woven, that life is a palea pattern, and that the original weaver was the sky serpent, pulling thread through thread until something beautiful could be worn by time. And so it was that the legend of Amaru, though not yet spoken aloud, was already present in every gust of wind, in every flicker of light on a lake, in every tremble of earth that hinted at movement far below. The silence was still there, but now it had rhythm. And rhythm, in time, would become story, not yet, but soon. In time, the rhythm grew stronger. What once moved as mere breath began to pulse with purpose. From the swirling path of Amaru's body, where sky touched soil and stars bent toward stone, there emerged other forces, other beings, not children, not creations in the way we understand them, but echoes, refractions, like beams of light breaking into color through mist. They were not gods yet, not in the way empires would later name them. They had no thrones, no wars to fight, no temples. They simply were, each one a presence, a song, a ripple in the great weave of the world. One such presence was Alapa, the spirit of thunder and rain. He did not ride storms with fury. He moved gently in those early days, casting soft lightning like fingers reaching from cloud to cloud, waking the sky with flashes of memory. It is said his footsteps were the beginning of time, each boom a heartbeat, each echo a marking of moments, and with his rains came the first tears of the earth, drops that soaked into sleeping soil and stirred the seeds Amaru had left behind. Where Ilapa danced, rivers formed, carving long, coiling paths that mirrored the serpent's own flow. These waters were not just drink for the land, they were carriers of memory, of life, and of song. And then came Pachamama, the earth mother, not as a woman, but as the spirit of earth itself, heavy and warm and silent and vast. She was not born, she was always there, in the curvature of hills, in the scent of moss, in the quiet pressure beneath your bare feet. Where Amaru's tail brushed against stone, Pachamama rose to meet it. Together, They formed a rhythm, the undulation of sky and soil, of serpent and mother, of breath and body. It is whispered that Amaru loved Pachamama, not in the way of stories told with words, but in the way rivers love valleys, in the way wind needs space to travel. They danced together, slowly, shaping the highlands, one above, one below, but always in motion, always watching each other through mist and memory. Other beings came into being from this sacred interplay, from the breath of the serpent and the thunder of Alapa. Birds took to the sky, bright feathered messengers with eyes that glinted like stars. These were the first watchers, guardians of stories not yet told. From the warmth of Pachamama's breath, the first flames flickered, a sacred fire that burned without wood, a heat that lived in stones, in the bellies of mountains, in the whispered warmth of sun-dappled terraces. This fire would one day become the hearth, the offering flame, the signal of life. But before people, there were spirits. The Andean world was never made for dominion, but for relationship. Every rock held presence, every shadow held a name, and each new being that emerged, animal, cloud, wind, or flame, was seen not as a resource, but as a relative. They say the first spirits were shy. They hid in canyons and in glacial caves. They perched silently on the highest ridges, watching, waiting. They were not ready yet to be seen, but they left signs, patterns in snow, murmurs in wind, shapes in the flight of condors. Among these earliest forces were Waka's sacred places, where the veil between the world and the beyond was thinnest. Not temples built by hand, but natural spaces where Amaru's presence was strong. A rock that hummed at sunset, a spring that never dried, a cliff where lightning always struck. These were not sites of superstition, but points of communion, where humans when they came would kneel not to worship, but to listen. Eventually, others began to form, not physical, not always visible, but felt. Serpent, the spirit of the underworld. He was not evil, not a devil, not a monster, but a keeper of what lies below, a shadow walker, a guardian of what has passed and what has yet to come. He moved through stone like smoke, collecting forgotten stories, dreams that had faded before waking. The Quechua would one day call his realm Yuku Pacha, the inner world, the world within. Alongside Serpent came Killa, the moon, sister to the sun, weaving tides of time in her slow silver arcs. She rose from the darkness of the world's early night, lighting the shadows with her soft blue fire. It is said that when Killa first opened her eye, the stars began to whisper back. All these beings existed not in competition, but in harmony, not in hierarchy, but in rhythm. The world was a song, sung slowly, across centuries. And as the beings moved, serpents and spirits, stars and soil, they left trails behind them, trails that would one day become myths. But for now, they were only movements in silence, poetry without words, stories waiting to be dreamed. Even Amaru, the first among them, had begun to rest. Its coils no longer stirred as often, its luminous form now blended with clouds and constellations. It became part of the background, part of the sky's memory, no less sacred, only quieter, waiting for something, and that something was us. Not yet. But soon, there would come a time when people would awaken from the earth like shoots from seeds, when breath would become speech, when ritual would become memory. But for now, the world was still dreaming. The spirits had shaped it, the serpent had woven it, and all that remained was for the silence to deepen just a little longer, holding the breath before the next verse of the song. And so, with the spirits seated in silence and the serpent woven into the sky, the world began to form, not all at once, but in slow, dreaming pulses. There was no single moment of creation. Instead, the land revealed itself the way a mountain reveals its summit to a climbing traveler, gradually, softly, step by step, First came the mountains Apus, the sacred guardians. They rose from the breath of Pachamama and the movements of Amaru's coiled spine, like giant vertebrae pressing upward from the earth's dreaming body. Each peak had a name before it had a summit, a soul before it had a shape. They were not merely masses of stone, they were keepers of intention, each with a particular role in the great weaving of reality. There was Ausangate, keeper of water, draped in glaciers and flowing robes of snow. Sakante, the wild Apu, fierce and powerful, often cloaked in storms. Viracocha, the whispering peak, said to hum songs that could be heard only in deep meditation. These were more than mountains, they were beings. Still today, offerings are left at their feet: coca leaves, tiny figurines, cups of chicha, tokens of respect for their continued dreaming. As these peaks stretched skyward, they caught the clouds, the thin air clung to their sides and began to swirl. From these dances of cold mist and mountain breath, the weather was born. Rain, as a spirit, was not considered a thing that happened to the world. It was the voice of the Apus. Thunder was not a storm, it was the mountain speaking to the sky. Lightning was not frightening, it was the flash of connection, a sudden glance between beings who remembered each other from the first dream. And where the rain touched the ground, green things began to grow. Grasses bent in graceful arcs along the slopes, and trees short and gnarled from the cold twisted their roots into the veins of the mountain. Alpacas and vicugas stepped silently over the ridges, their wool growing thick to protect them from the thin air. They were not animals to the ancient ones, they were watchers, soft-eyed spirits, bearing witness as the earth unfolded into itself. Rivers, too, began to trace their winding paths, carving the memory of Amaru into every valley. They were considered veins of the world, arteries through which spirit flowed. The Quechua called them Mayu, a word that also meant the Milky Way, for the great river in the sky mirrored the waters on the earth, above and below. The same paths were walked out. The Milky Way was said to be Amaru's sky river. Its celestial body stretched across the heavens like a message not yet translated. The people believed that when they died, their spirits followed that path backward, climbing the river of stars until they reached the Serpent's coiled home, high beyond even the coldest peaks. It was during this time, when rivers spoke and mountains listened, that the concept of time began to emerge, not as something linear, but as a rhythm, a spiral, a seasonal pattern woven through the world's fabric. Time was not counted by hours or minutes. It was marked by breath, by crop cycles, by the turning of the moon. It was seen in the return of the rains, in the blooming of certain flowers, in the migrations of birds that had seen the serpent's light from above. It was sacred because it repeated, because it folded upon itself like Amaru's coils. With time came ritual, and with ritual came the first magic. This magic was not about control. It was not the casting of spells or the summoning of forces. It was relationship, a weaving of intention into the world, a soft gesture of alignment, the planting of seeds with whispered songs, the burning of herbs to awaken memory, the tracing of patterns in sand to mirror the stars. This was the first weaving ayahuasca, and it was believed that to weave was to echo the actions of the sky serpent, to mimic its eternal coiling across layers of reality. Cloth was sacred not because it kept one warm, but because it held prayers in its patterns. Every color, every knot, every strand had meaning. The loom was a gateway, and the weaver, a quiet conjurer of balance. As these early rituals formed, so too did the people. They rose from the dust not as conquerors, but as caretakers, placed gently between Pachamama and Amaru, cradled between stone and star. The first humans were said to emerge from caves, from sacred lakes, from hidden places in the land. Each group carried the memory of the serpent in their blood, the rhythm of the stars in their steps. They did not see the world as theirs. They saw themselves as part of the world's dreaming body. Language began not as command, but as song. Architecture began not as conquest, but as alignment. Cities were not built to reach the heavens, they were placed to mirror the constellations. Machu Picchu, Cusco, sacred valleys and terraced slopes, all shaped with reverence, with rhythm, with the knowledge that they were stitching themselves into something already alive. Even the simplest acts, planting potatoes, grinding maize, boiling water, were acts of ritual, not because they were dramatic, but because they were part of the weave. Every movement mattered, every shadow had purpose, every silence was a kind of listening. And so, the world was not just formed. It was felt into being. It was woven from spirit. It was sung by sky serpents. It was guided by stars. And as the people looked upward into the coiling band of the Milky Way, they remembered where they had come from, not from conquest, but from breath, not from fire, but from dream. They looked into the heavens and did not see chaos. They saw pattern, intention, home. They saw Amaru, still there, still glowing faintly, wrapped around the stars like a lullaby. And they understood. The world was a dream, and they were dreamers, dreaming it still. Before the great empires, before the stone cities crowned the spines of mountains, there was a figure who walked not with armies, but with silence. A figure who came from the edge of the world, neither entirely man nor god, cloaked in wind and foam, bearing no weapon save a tall staff and a memory older than flame. His name was Viracocha. To the Inca, he was Viracocha, the one who formed the world not by force, but by shaping what already yearned to become, a bringer of form, of wisdom, of order where only rhythm had existed before. Not a destroyer, but a dreamer, not a ruler, but a guide. They say he emerged from the waters of Lake Titicaca, when the sky was still gray and the earth groaned with the weight of its newness. The lake, vast and breathless, sat high among the mountains like an ancient mirror, still and watchful. From its depths came light, not sudden, not blinding, but soft and pulsing, like the slow heartbeat of something sacred waking up. And from that light, he stepped forth. He wore a long tunic that shimmered like rain-soaked stone. His eyes, they said, held the sky. His face was veiled by mist, and in his hand was a tall staff, carved with shapes not yet named, symbols that would one day become constellations and mountain paths. The people who lived scattered and cold along the high plains did not know what to make of him. He arrived in a time of great confusion, when men warred with beasts, when the sun and moon argued over the sky, and when no one could agree on where the world had come from or where it was going. Viracocha did not claim power. He did not raise temples. He walked from village to village, from coast to mountain, from shadow to flame. Where he passed, people say, the sick stood up, the rain came when needed, the fire kindled without spark. He spoke not in orders, but in symbols. He drew patterns in ash and sand. He sang to stones and left behind bridges, made of woven grass, suspended across deep canyons that no one had dared to cross before. To some, he appeared as a man with a golden beard, to others, a shining being with eyes of lightning, but to most, he was simply a quiet presence, watching, listening, teaching not through force, but through remembering. They say he taught them to live in balance. To till the earth with respect. To weave the sky into their clothes. To build not against nature, but with her breath. Under his guidance, the world settled. Crops grew in harmony with the rain. Villages began to form into circles and rows, reflecting the stars above. Children learned to watch the condor, the puma, the serpent not as animals, but as signs, and the people began to say, this world is not just a place, it is a message. Viracocha did not stay forever. Such figures rarely do. When his work was done, or perhaps when he saw that the dreaming had begun to blur, he turned back toward the western sea. They say he walked across the waves, his cloak billowing like cloud, his staff drawing lines in the water that became ripples of time. Others say he disappeared into the sky, becoming a shadow just beneath the sun, too bright to look at directly, but always there, watching. And yet others claim he never left at all, that he only changed, became wind, became stone, became memory, became the silence between lightning strikes. And so Viracocha faded from the waking world, but not from the woven one. His image remained carved into stone gates, etched into temple walls, whispered in the prayers of weavers and priests, not as a god to be feared, but as a father of thought, a shaper of harmony. He was the one who brought the pattern, the one who reminded the world of what it could become. And he did it not with fire, but with patience, not with battle, but with breath. Though much of Viracocha's journey is lost to silence, there is one tale that echoes faintly across the high valleys and windswept plateaus. It is told not loudly, but in quiet tones by the fire, as twilight paints the stone in violet hues. It is a story not of conquest, but of remembrance, a story of a world washed clean, and of what it means to begin again, long ago, before time was held in lines and seasons, before calendars traced the dance of the moon. The world had already fallen once. Not in flame, not in war, but in confusion. The people had forgotten the rhythm, forgotten the threads that bound spirit to stone, breath to ritual, sky to soil. They had turned from the old patterns, pulled apart the weave. Where once rivers flowed with meaning, they now flowed with sorrow. Where mountains were honored, they were now climbed without song. The animals grew silent, the sky watched with distant eyes. Viracocha saw the imbalance, not with anger, but with stillness. He felt the loosened threads, the fraying fabric of what had been sacred. And so, the old ones say, he summoned the waters. He did not scream, he did not destroy, he simply breathed, and from his breath came rain, soft at first like mist kissing the fur of llamas, then stronger, then endless. The sky opened, the river swelled, the sea reached inland as though remembering something it had once held. The flood came not as punishment, but as cleansing. As memory. It was not meant to end the world, but to steep it in silence long enough to hear the old song again. And in the midst of this great washing, there were survivors, not many, just a few. Among them, a pair of brothers or cousins, sometimes called Manco Capac and Pachacamac, sometimes unnamed. They were hidden in caves high in the Andes, above the reach of the angry sea. The serpent, Amaru, coiled protectively around the mountain's roots, its glowing breath keeping the waters at bay. These survivors were chosen not for their strength, but for their memory. When the waters receded and the sun returned to warm the stone once more, Viracocha appeared to them not as a man, not as a god, but as light filtered through morning fog. He gave them three things: a staff to test the land wherever it sank easily into the soil. They would build a quipu, a cord of knotted strings on which they would record memory, and a song, which they would pass on only by voice, never by writing, for songs live best in breath, not on paper. He told them to walk, to follow the rivers, to seek the middle of the world, the navel, where sky and earth touch, and when they found it, to remember the balance, to build not in dominion, but in alignment, not in stone alone, but in spirit. And so they walked, for days, for years some say, for lifetimes. They planted the staff in many places, but it would not sink. The land was not yet ready. Until one day, high in a valley shaped like a puma, the staff disappeared into the ground with a soft sigh, as if returning home. There, they built what would become Cusco, the center of the Inca world, the belly of the puma, the bridge between above and below. And though Viracocha had vanished again, his gifts remained. The people began to use the quipu not just as a record, but as a sacred tool. Each knot was a memory, each string a thread in the great cosmic weaving. They believed the knots held time, that the elders could read not just numbers, but intention within them, a soft form of magic, a tactile remembrance. The staff they planted in the earth, and from its resting place rose temples, walls, roads, all in harmony with the stars. The serpent was carved into lintels and woven into tunics. His path traced the rivers and the sky. The song, of course, lived on the wind. It was passed from mother to child, from stone carver to priest. It carried no words at times, only tones deep, low, vibrating with something that spoke not to the ear, but to the body. And in all things, they remembered Viracocha. Not as a king, not as a conqueror, but as the one who walked the world in silence, who brought the flood not to end life, but to return it, who gave them the tools to live in harmony with mountain and star. As the Inca rose, building stairways to heaven, sun temples of perfect geometry, and roads that crossed thousands of miles without iron or wheel, they did not claim credit. They said only, "We follow the steps of Viracocha," for though he was gone, his shape remained in every coil of the serpent, in the sky. In every knot of string, in every breath of ritual. In every flood dreamt by water. When the land forgets again, and perhaps that is the quiet power of his legend, not that he changed the world through force, but that he reminded it of what it already knew. Long after Viracocha vanished into the sea, or sky, or silence depending on which story is told, his presence lingered, not in statues or idols, but in the quiet order of things, in the invisible frameworks of daily life, in the shape of the land and the way people spoke to it. His footsteps had carved more than paths through mountains. They had carved intentional way of living, one that whispered more than it spoke, one that called not for belief, but for alignment. He had not built the empires that came later, but the empires remembered him. In the days of the Inca, when stone cities like Cusco and Ollantaytambo rose from the bones of the Andes, when golden sun temples shimmered on mountaintops and priests read the skies from terraces, Viracocha was no longer just a distant figure. He had become the original axis. They called him the creator, yes, but not as a builder of bodies, more as the one who had breathed order into breath, who had shown them how to live in tune with the world rather than above it. He became the background melody of empire, a soft hum beneath every festival, every offering. His name was spoken in rituals of origin, in the quiet phrases uttered when planting crops, or building new roads, not with thunder, but with reverence, not out of fear, but remembrance. Even those who ruled claimed descent not from warriors, but from him. The first Inca kings traced their bloodline to Viracocha, not to assert dominance, but to affirm purpose. They saw themselves as caretakers of a rhythm, not masters of a world. Their laws were shaped by harmony, their temples aligned with the stars, not to reach heaven, but to mirror it. His legacy, too, lived in the stone itself. Unlike other ancient monuments, the temples and cities of the Andes were not adorned with terrifying deities or scenes of conquest. They were clean, balanced, carved to fit the world's breath. Some stones, placed without mortar, interlocked so perfectly that not even a blade of grass could pass between them. These were not merely feats of engineering, they were acts of respect, each stone laid as a syllable in a long, slow prayer. In these walls, the old ones say, Viracocha still rests, not as a ghost, not as a god, but as a presence, a rhythm that continues when the wind moves just right through a high window. a silence that deepens when dusk settles over the sacred valley. He also remained in stories, passed from lips to ears around cooking fires, rattled in lullabies and in the metaphors, woven into fabric in some tales. He is described as walking the land again in secret, disguised as a beggar, testing those he meets for compassion, listening to the land's heartbeat through stone in others. He dreams beneath the lakes, especially Titicaca, waiting for the next forgetting, the next time when people lose the thread, and the weaving begins to fray. When that time comes, they say, he will rise again, not to punish, but to restore, to show the pattern once more, to walk the paths, to breathe rain into the dry soil of memory. But perhaps his most enduring echo is in the Andean worldview itself. Long after the Spanish arrived, long after empires fell, and golden idols were melted and names rewritten, the old stories remained beneath the surface, hidden, but alive, like a river running underground, like a serpent curled in sleep. The people still offer pago gifts to the earth, still burn K-Indus of coca leaves with breath and prayer, still walk the ancient Czech spiritual lines, traced across the landscape, connecting temples, mountains, springs, and stars, still whisper to the Apus, still read the sky, still remember. Not always with names, not always with books, but in the body, in the earth, in the way a grandmother ranges her stones, or how a child lays quiet beneath the stars, listening for a presence too soft to speak. In this way, Viracocha's story never ended. It simply wove itself into the background like breath, like silence, like the coiling path of the serpent in the stars. It became part of the rhythm of sleep and waking, of planting and harvest, of beginning again. And perhaps that is the quietest power of all, not to command history, but to echo softly through it, to guide not with force, but with patience, to wait gently in the background until the world is ready to remember itself again. As you drift now, gently, on the edge of rest, think of that. A presence that asks nothing, a shape that cannot be grasped, a name that lives not in fear, but in rhythm. That is Viracocha. The one who walked, the one who remembered, the one who watches still. Let us now turn away, just slightly, from the stories told in words and drift into the realm of mysteries, the quiet kind. The ones that lie just beneath the soil, just beneath the skin of the world, humming softly in the silence of dawn. Here, in the southern deserts of Peru, beneath the open gaze of sun and stars, lies a great plain, flat, dry, eternal. From the ground, it appears barren, a place of dust and wind. But rise above it just a little, just far enough, and something else begins to reveal itself. Shapes, lines, vast designs, carved not by rivers or wind, but by hand, lines that stretch for miles, patterns as delicate as breath, yet so immense that they can only be truly seen from the sky. These are the Nazca Lines, the quiet scars of a forgotten ritual. From above, you might see a hummingbird, its wings outstretched across the desert floor, or a spider, a monkey, a fish, a tree, or stranger forms, long zigzagging lines, spirals, trapezoids, and figures that defy naming. Some stretch for hundreds of meters, others are so faint, so shallow, they almost vanish beneath the sand and sunlight. They do not shout, they whisper. No one is entirely certain why they were made, or how such precision was achieved with no aerial view. There are no ancient texts that explain them, no myths that detail their design, and yet they persist etched into earth, untouched for centuries. Watching the sky with shapes that seem too vast to be accidental. To the local Quechua and Aymara communities, these are not just curiosities, they are marks of remembrance, signs of presence, veins of energy left behind by those who still speak through silence. Some say they are pathways for the gods, visible from the sky because they were meant to be seen by something above, perhaps the serpents of air, the Amaru who coil through the clouds. Others say they are offerings, great messages scratched into the earth to call for water, rain, or balance in a land where the skies are often dry and slow to answer. And some believe they are maps, not of land, but of the cosmos, a weaving of star pots onto earth, meant to mirror constellations, to remember the patterns above when the clouds hide the night. But for most, they remain what all true mysteries are, questions, softly asked, that resist answers. What kind of people would spend generations carving such enormous designs that they could never fully see from the ground? What kind of belief must have guided their hands? What presence were they trying to speak to? And if we listen closely, are they still speaking? Walk along one of the lines carefully, respectfully, and you will notice how it pulls you forward, gently, as if the land itself remembers the direction, as if your steps are not yours alone, but part of an older rhythm. You are not just walking, you are participating in a ritual that began long before memory and may never fully end. The Nazca Lines are not alone in their mystery. Across the Andean world, symbols echoed the same form: serpents winding through textiles, hummingbirds dancing in ceramic, spirals drawn into stone, always the same themes: air, movement, offering, memory. Always reaching upward. Always waiting. Even today, pilots flying over the desert in small planes often fall silent. There is something in the lines, something deeper than their shape, a presence, a quiet, a pause that feels sacred. It is not fear, it is not awe. It is recognition of something just out of reach, of something made not for eyes, but for spirit. Perhaps they were drawn not to be seen, but to be felt. And perhaps you, now, as you listen in the soft dark of your room, are not so far from the desert. Perhaps part of you walks there, barefoot on warm sand, beneath a sky full of turning stars. The lines are not just in the earth, they are in you, in your thoughts, in your breath. This is the first truth of mystery, that it lives in silence and sometimes in shape. In the silence of the desert, the Nazca Lines endure not merely as markings on earth, but as invitations, and over time, many have tried to answer their call. Scholars, mystics, locals, dreamers, and skeptics alike have offered their interpretations, each one weaving another thread into the tapestry of wonder that surrounds these ancient designs. Some say the lines were made for the gods of the sky, the people of the Nazca culture, flourishing long before the Incas, are believed to have honored powerful deities of rain, wind, and fertility, forces that governed life in a region often scorched by sun and parched of water. In a land where rivers vanish into dust and clouds rarely pass, water was more than survival. It was spirit, it was balance, it was everything. According to this view, the lines were offerings, vast messages etched into the skin of the world, meant to call the gods down from the heights of the sky. A hummingbird drawn into the sand was not just a bird, it was a prayer. A monkey spiraling into itself was not simply an image, it was a chant, traced in earth instead of voice. In this telling, the very act of walking the lines, of tracing their paths with bare feet, step by step, was itself a form of ritual, a way to realign the body with the cosmos, a moving meditation under the open sky. Other theories speak not of the divine above, but of the celestial map reflected below. Archaeoastronomers have long wondered whether the lines might correspond to constellations, that perhaps these shapes were part of a greater design mirroring the stars. The ancient Andean people did not see constellations as isolated patterns. They saw dark constellations, shapes not formed by stars, but by the spaces between them. Especially in the Milky Way, there they saw a serpent, a fox, a llama, a toad. They saw stories written not in points of light, but in the shadows that danced between them. And if the sky was sacred, then it made sense to trace it on the earth to anchor heaven to stone, to bring the eternal into the touchable. This is the second telling, that the lines are a mirror, that the great desert plain was a black cloth, upon which the heavens were embroidered, one long pattern stretching from sky to soil. Then there are those who look closer to home, who say the lines were not messages to the gods, nor maps of the stars, but pathways of power routes taken during ritual processions that connected sacred sites. The Andes are full of checks, imaginary lines radiating out from holy centers, like Cusco, connecting temples, springs, and mountains in a vast, invisible web. The Nazca Lines may have been part of a similar system, not decorative, but functional, used for pilgrimages, for ceremonies that followed the flow of energy through the land. In this vision, the desert becomes a temple without walls, the earth itself, the canvas, the worship, not of statues or idols, but of movement, reverent, slow, human. Some patterns, like long, straight lines extending into the horizon, may have pointed toward mountains, especially those believed to be Apus, the sacred ones, mountains that brought water, mountains that held memory. To walk those lines may have been to honor the journey of the water itself from summit to river, from cloud to crop. Others interpret the shapes as agricultural calendars, that the angles and intersections aligned with the solstices, with the rhythms of planting and harvest. In a world where time was read from the sky, the lines may have told when to sow, when to offer, when to rest. Still others go further. They suggest the lines may not be for the gods or of the stars, but rather by something not of this world at all. These voices, fewer and more speculative, speak of flying machines, of ancient visitors, of civilizations now lost. The sheer scale and precision of the drawings, they argue, suggest knowledge beyond the tools of the time. But such stories, however intriguing, often overlook something more important: the quiet intelligence of the earthbound. For what if the builders of the lines needed no flight, no machines, but simply knew how to see differently, to measure with ropes and posts, to map not with eyes, but with pattern? What if they understood something we have forgotten, that vision is not always vertical, that knowing the shape of something does not require being above it, but being within it? What if mystery is not a riddle to be solved, but a breath to be honored? Because the truth is, the Nazca Lines may have had many meanings. Not all symbols are meant to have one answer. Some things, like dreams, like lullabies, like rivers, wind across meanings. Perhaps the lines are memory, carved into the earth to outlast empires. Perhaps they are song, drawn silently for spirits to hum as they pass. Perhaps they are a kind of sleepwalking the desert, dreaming aloud, in loops and spirals, in forms only birds and gods can fully see. And perhaps, like many true mysteries, the lines do not ask to be explained. They ask only to be witnessed, to be walked, to be felt. Even now, people visit them. Pilots fly overhead. Tourists gaze from observation towers. But sometimes, a lone traveler will stand at the edge of a line, place bare feet to sand, and listen. And in that moment, they may feel something ancient stir. Not loud, not dramatic, just a gentle hum, like wind brushing past a distant mountain, like a memory that was never yours, and yet belongs to you. That is the nature of these mysteries, not to shock or to thrill, but to invite, to remind us that not all stories are told with voices, that some are drawn into silence, and that silence, too, can speak. Even after centuries of study and speculation, the Nazca Lines remain, above all, unresolved. Theories may brush against the truth, offer a glimpse here, A pattern there, but the deeper meaning of those shapes, those lines, those enormous silent gestures etched across the desert, remains just beyond reach. Like mist drifting before you as you walk through a high mountain pass. You feel it, you see it, but it will not be held. And perhaps that is the point. In a world increasingly defined by certainty, by proof, by evidence, by loud explanation, the Nazca Lines stand as a quiet defiance. They do not conform. They do not answer when called. They remain still, and in their stillness, they matter. We often assume that what we cannot explain must be flawed, unfinished, or irrelevant. But mystery, especially in the Andean worldview, is not a void to be filled. It is a space to be honored, a sacred gap where silence can breathe. These lines, then, may not be asking us for meaning. They may be offering us an experience, an encounter with the unspoken, a chance to sit with something that predates our ideas of ownership, utility, or understanding. The ancient people who carved them did not leave instructions. There are no markers, no texts explaining why, and yet, the work was done with care, with intention. Generation after generation of hands, walking and marking and shaping the desert surface. Never seeing the full form from above. Imagine that. To create beauty you cannot witness. To shape a vision you can never fully see. It requires trust. Trust in the land. In spirit. In future eyes. That may be the most mysterious thing of all, not the images themselves, but the act of devotion they represent. A collective commitment to something larger, quieter, older. In that way, the Nazca Lines are not just artifacts, they are relationships, inscribed. Relationships between people and sky. Between land and spirit. Between silence and memory. And their mystery, even now, does something rare. It slows us down. When you look at them, when you fly above or study them from afar, you do not rush. You pause, you wonder, you listen, not for noise, but for echo. You are reminded that some things in this world were never meant to be loud. They were meant to endure. To last beyond conquest, beyond decay. To survive as breath survives in a sleeping body. As warmth survives in a quiet sun. As story survives in the patterns we don't yet understand. And perhaps, in our current age so full of flashing answers, of digital distractions and hurried certainty, we need these mysteries more than ever. Not to explain, but to remember. To remember that the world does not owe us clarity, that silence is not absence, that sacredness does not require comprehension, that somewhere in the southern deserts of Peru, the earth still holds its breath beneath vast shapes no one fully sees, but many still feel. That we walk not only on ground, but on memory. And that in those long, looping lines, someone once said, we were here, we loved the stars, we gave our breath to the wind, we left behind shapes for those who still listen. So let us listen. Not with ears alone, but with stillness. With curiosity, with reverence for what we do not know. Let the lines be, let them remain. A map we cannot follow, a dream we are still dreaming, a serpent that coils in silence, never needing to speak. There is a tale, long held in the high places of the Andes, where the wind carries stories across stone and silence. A tale passed down through the generations, not always in books or scrolls, but in the breath of elders, in the rhythm of weaving, in the slow ritual of planting seeds. It is the story of Viracocha, the great creator of the world, soft-footed, cloud-wrapped, ancient beyond memory. In the traditional telling, the world was born, broken, and born again. It did not begin in perfection, but in chaos, and from this chaos, Viracocha emerged not with fire, not with war, but from the deep stillness of water. He came, they say, from Lake Titicaca, that high and luminous lake where the sky touches the mountains, and mist hovers like a veil between worlds. It was from these sacred waters that he stepped ashore, walking the land with quiet intention. He looked upon a world filled with giants, not in the fairy tale sense, but in the mythic sense. Great beings of old, powerful and wild, who roamed the valleys and plateaus without law or balance. They had been made in an earlier time, shaped by an earlier dream, but they had forgotten their place in the pattern. They brought disorder to the world. They disrespected Pachamama, the mother of the earth. They ignored the sky. They turned inward, greedy and loud, and the land suffered beneath their steps. So Viracocha, seeing the disharmony, unmade them, not with weapons, not with vengeance, but with flood. A great deluge was sent to cleanse the world, not to punish, but to restore silence, to clear the canvas, to soften the noise of forgotten rhythms. The giants were swept away, their names lost, their memories sinking with the waters. Only a few humans, gentle ones, remained hidden high in caves, in mountains cradled by the Apus, protected by spirits of stone. When the waters fell away, the land gleamed fresh, like clay newly shaped, and Viracocha walked again. This time, he formed new people from earth, from stone, from the dust of stars. He breathed into them the memory of balance, of harmony with the mountains and sky. He gave them languages, tools, rituals. He taught them to listen to the wind and to follow the rivers. He traveled across the land in human form, tall and quiet, with a staff in his hand and a cloak that shimmered like twilight. Wherever he passed, peace followed. Crops began to grow, rivers found their paths, birds returned to the trees. He taught the people to build, not only with stone, but with intention, not only to speak, but to offer, to live with Ani. The sacred reciprocity, the idea that all life is a give and take, a weaving of energies. The Inca would one day claim descent from him, tracing their bloodline to this gentle god of origin. But in the old stories, Viracocha is not tied to empire. He belongs to the whole world, to coast and mountain, to jungle and desert. He moved everywhere, appeared in many forms, always walking, always listening, and when his work was done, he turned toward the west. Some say he vanished into the Pacific Ocean, walking upon the waves as easily as a man walks a forest path. Others say he climbed into the sky and became part of the stars, or that he sleeps still beneath Lake Titicaca, breathing in rhythm with the earth. But even in absence, he is remembered in temples and in threads in stories passed across moonlit nights in the hush that falls over a mountaintop when the wind pauses and everything listens. That is the traditional telling, a soft myth, a sacred order, a god who restored the world not through domination, but through balance, a god of water, of walking, of wisdom, a god who taught that silence is not emptiness, but potential. But beneath the soft cadence of the traditional tale, there lies another version. It is quieter still, not often spoken aloud. It moves between the woven threads of myth and memory, told in places where the old ways never truly disappeared, by elders whose eyes linger longer on the mountains, by weavers who knot shapes into fabric that no one dares translate. It is the story of Viracocha, yes, but seen from the edge of the circle, not the center, from the side of the forgotten, not the anointed. In this telling, Viracocha was not a god, or rather he was not only that, he was an ancestor, one of a people not born from nothing, but descended from somewhere older, far beyond the mountains, a wanderer, a memory carrier, a remnant of a civilization whose name was lost before stone learned how to hold shape. He did not create the world, he remembered it. They say he came after a fall, not just a mythic flood, but the collapse of something greater, a golden age buried not by water alone, but by forgetting. Viracocha, in this version, is a keeper of knowledge, not divine in power, but sacred in purpose, a survivor, burdened not with command, but with preservation. He knew of the old ways, the lost patterns, the sky paths and song lines that once connected all things. He came not to create humanity, but to reawaken it. The flood was not his doing. It was a consequence of imbalance, of spiritual drift, of the threads of reciprocity being pulled too far in one direction. And when the waters came, Viracocha did not summon them, but endured them. Like everyone else, he was a man who watched the sea rise and still chose to walk forward, to begin again. This alternate path tells us that creation is not a single act but an echo, that our ancestors did not invent life, but reshaped it, remembered it, rekindled what was already fading. The line between human and divine blurs here. Viracocha becomes not a distant god of sky and staff but a wayfarer, a messenger, a bridge. Some versions even say he was not alone, that others like him came with him, or before him, or after, that the world has always been shaped by these memory bearers, quiet travelers who appear when the balance shifts too far, when people forget to listen. Some stayed and became spirits of place, stone gods, mountain watchers. Others moved on, disappeared into cloud, left only shapes drawn into desert floors, or songs passed down through hands rather than mouths. And what of the giants? In the traditional tale, they are the flawed ones undone by their own misdeeds. But here, in the darker version, they are not evil. They are the old world itself, strong, powerful, untamed. They carried the weight of ancient knowledge, yes, but also the scars of pride, of closed hearts, of detachment. They could not adapt to the new breath rising through the land, and so they faded not by flood alone, but by forgetting. Viracocha mourned them. That's what this story tells us, that he walked the land not in glory, but in grief, that every step was an act of restoration, not dominion. And the people, they were not made of clay or stone in a single instant, but slowly taught to remember themselves, to walk again with the earth, to speak the old rhythms with new tongues. He gave them not just tools or laws, but dreams. He wove ideas into their rituals. He sang stories into their seeds. He taught the builders to align their cities with stars, not to reach the gods, but to recall the shapes of the heavens once charted by ancestors whose voices no longer had names. And then, when enough had been passed on, when the spark was steady enough to survive, he left, not in triumph, but in trust. This alternate telling is not found in chronicles. It's not inscribed in the records left behind by scribes who served kings and empires. It lives in weavings, in the pause between songs, in the eye contact between elder and apprentice. It whispers in the way a stone is placed atop another, in the angle of a doorway facing the solstice, in the spiral path that leads to a spring said to remember the first breath. It is a story that refuses to settle into just one shape, because, in this version, truth is not fixed. It flows, like the rivers Viracocha once followed. It coils, like the serpent in the sky. It echoes, like a forgotten name carried on mountain wind. So what does this alternate truth ask of us? Not worship. Not certainty, but participation. To step into the myth, not as bystanders, but as continuers of it. To walk the paths with reverence, to shape the world not as a conquest, but as a remembering. To be, like Viracocha in this telling, dreamers who restore. In the end, whether Viracocha was God or ancestor, creator or restorer, divine or deeply human, it is not the definition that matters. It is the rhythm, the presence, the echo that moves through both versions of the story, because stories, like rivers, do not flow in straight lines. They turn, they split, they disappear underground, only to rise again, changed but still water. Andean tradition does not ask stories to be final. It does not ask them to sit still. The old ones knew that truth is layered, coiled, overlapping like the paths of stars and the rings of a serpent. One version of a story can live beside another, not as contradiction, but as complement, as different windows into the same sacred breath. So perhaps Viracocha was a god to those who needed guidance from above. Perhaps he was an ancestor to those who felt the weight of memory in their bones. Perhaps he was both, or neither. Perhaps he is the shape we see in the mist just before waking, a presence that shifts when we try to name it. This is the gift of myth. It evolves with us, not to change its meaning, but to meet us where we are. In one era, we see Viracocha as order bringer, as the one who clears the chaos of giants and ushers in peace. In another, we see him as mourner, as memory bearer walking the ruins of a forgotten age. And still in another, we see him in ourselves, a human spirit trying to remember the song of the stars, while standing barefoot on cracked earth. That is the secret of these tales. They are not just about the past, they are mirrors. They reflect what we need to hear when we are ready to listen. Because whether we speak of floods or staffs, of ancient flights or sacred cities built in stone, there is a deeper truth beneath it all. The idea that the world needs caretakers, listeners, rememberers, people who walk gently, who offer something back to the land, who know that rituals are not relics, but relationships. We live now in a time that moves fast, where stories are expected to be sharp and loud, to offer answers quickly. But Viracocha's tale moves in another rhythm, a slower one, like water winding down terraces, like wind brushing through coca leaves. His truth is not declared. It is offered. And in both the traditional and the forgotten versions, one truth remains unchanged. The world needs reweaving. The mountains still remember. The rivers still speak. The stars still follow their ancient paths. And we, too, are part of that pattern. So whether you walk in the footsteps of gods or ancestors, whether your story is old or just beginning, there is room in the myth for you to listen, to step carefully, to trace the invisible lines between land and sky, to shape not the story that conquers, but the one that remembers. Because perhaps Viracocha never truly left. Perhaps he was never meant to stay. Perhaps the greatest act of creation was not making the world, but trusting us to tend it. And now the story fades, like mist rising from the terraces at dawn, like the last thread pulled through the loom, before the cloth is folded and set aside. The tale of Viracocha returns to stillness, not because it has ended, but because it has completed its circle. You've walked the high valleys and sacred rivers. You've followed the coiling lines of sky serpents and ancient footsteps. You've listened to the rhythm of a world shaped not by conquest, but by breath, by intention, by the silent agreements between mountain and sky. And perhaps you've begun to remember something, not in words, not in facts, but in feeling. There are stories, after all, that do not teach, they restore. Stories that do not command, they accompany. Stories that do not shout, they hum, quietly, just beneath the surface of sleep. This was one of those. The tale of Viracocha lives on, not because it was written in books, but because it was carved into stone, traced across the desert, whispered in coca smoke and mountain wind, woven into belts and walls and ritual pots. It survived because it was felt, and now it has been passed to you, not as a burden, not as a task, but as a gentle thread, offered in the night, to carry with you through your dreams, through your rest, through your quiet re-entry into waking life. Wherever you are, know this: the earth beneath you remembers, the sky above you is not empty. There are still lines drawn between things. There is still a pattern. There is still time. Let your breath soften. Let your limbs rest heavy. Let the rhythm of this world, the slow, sacred rhythm of soil and star guide you gently into sleep. The sky serpent coils above, shimmering between dreams. Viracocha walks softly through the valley of memory. The story continues in silence, and so, in stillness you may now rest.